because it's 10 o'clock and it's Lancaster Woodturners Coffee Hour, number 129. What's going on here is John Ziegler, a recent member of the club, is working with me to learn how to use our AV system here at the club space. And Barry and Ben are here this morning as well, because we're arranging the furniture. We're moving the lathe so it gets a better view of the room. We've moved the boom. We've rearranged the power cords. We got all the cords off the floor. There's no cords to trip on anymore. So we're really doing a lot, what we can here to make this meeting space better, because Lancaster Club has a meeting next Tuesday night right here in this space, in which Barry is going to demonstrate the latest version of his spiral cutting jig, which is now probably V4 or 5. It's sort of perfected. It's working pretty good. The other thing I want to tell you before we get started here is that it is dues season. And if you would like to belong to the Lancaster Club, it's only $30 a year. For your $30, you get 50 hours of Zoom, 24 hours of hybrid monthly club meeting, and another 36 hours of monthly in-person, non-Zoom, hands-on, fool around in the workshop. So that's a hell of a deal for your measly $30. So those of you who are out there in Zoom land enjoying coffee hour who haven't joined the Lancaster Club, and the way you can pay them is you have 3 ways to pay them. You can show up here and hand me cash because I'm the club treasurer. You can mail me a check to my home address, which I will get in the chat before the evening is over, and is also on the club membership list that Barry sends out. Make the check out to Lancaster Woodturners. Or you can PayPal to me personally, and I will then transfer it into the club account attributed to you. If you do that, use my email, which you get when I send you invites, JOHNKELSE, there's no Y on the end of my name, at gmail.com. That'll PayPal through to me, and I will credit it through to you and the club. And once the dust settles a bit, I'll send acknowledgement receipt emails to everyone who has paid up. It would be lovely if we could get done with dues during December, so we didn't drag them out into the new year. So that's my request to you all, and that's the marketing pitch of the hour here. Now, having said all that, it is coffee hour and it is a show and tell coffee hour, and so I'm going to unmute. You guys can now take the spotlight off me is the thing, I think. All right, who'd like to show stuff today? You have to use raise hand to rise up to the top of the pile here. Kai, are you gonna? Oh, you got your hand up. Oh, good. We got a nice good 3. So we're gonna need a couple more people here to have a good fun hour. Somebody's gonna have a slideshow or some things you want to show us. Yeah, see, they're all coming out of the woodwork now.
Yeah.
Okay. Bert, you want to go first?
Sure, I got a quick one here. I'll see if I can share my screen. It's this one here, I believe. This one here. Yeah. And there.
I get control of the size of that window.
Okay, can you guys see the
control of all of these?
a little bent steam thing with a bunch of dowels in it? Can you guys see that?
Yeah, we do see that.
With a little squirrel on top. Well, it's a kid's game that's similar to Jenga, but the object is they take all those little bars out one at a time, and whoever pulls the one out where all the rest of them fall. It actually bridges itself as you take them out, and the one that pulls the one out where they all fall, that's the end of the game. But in order to make it, I had to bend that 3-inch wide, 8-inch. I had to rip the planks 8-inch thick and 3 inches wide. And there's my hot plate with a pot of water and a 4-inch piece of pipe, and I steamed it for about an hour and a half, and ended up, let's see what's going on here. Ended up getting the wood to be like spaghetti, and clamped it on a form, and then Bob's your uncle, and there's what I ended up with. Whoops.
Now that's a laminate, many layers.
That's laminate, yeah. That's a laminate with 3 layers of ash, 3 inches wide or 3.5 inches wide, and laminated together. So it's made my own plywood type thing, and yeah, that's a Christmas present for some kids in Edson. Their town mascot is a squirrel, so that little thing on top is supposed to represent a squirrel, and these kids will be able to play their game. That's it for me.
Okay. You want to end your share? Yeah, and we're going to put it on Kai.
Okay, thanks. I've got a little sculpture that I turned and want to show. So I share my screen with you. Okay, that's it.
Yep.
Wow,
Wow,
a little sculpture, huh?
just a little sculpture.
Yeah. It's about 8 inches in diameter, the globe.
Wow, that's beautiful.
And it came from an apple tree.
From what?
From an apple tree.
Apple tree, okay.
Yeah. So if you take the root from one apple tree and kind of put another apple tree trunk or something like that, a branch on top of it, and try to merge these, it grows kind of a bulb.
In
At the ground.
English, that's a graft.
A graft. Okay, so it came from a graft of an apple tree. And yeah, the other wood is walnut and maple. And then I did these little inserts to show, yeah, the state of our planet. I've got some more photos of them. They are from cherry wood, I guess. Yeah, it was cherry. So I just try to go on.
Is it a sphere or a disc?
It's a sphere. Yeah, I'll show you the back in a moment. So that's the inserts.
Oh, those are on the metal, those little inserts. Did you burn those or what did you do?
Yeah, I lasered them.
Lasered them. Okay.
Okay.
Send them a baseball bat.
Yeah.
And then I kind of drilled a hole using a Forstner bit and put them in.
So that's a wooden arc, right? That curve shape is made of wood?
Yeah, that's maple. Yeah.
Okay. I thought it was aluminum at first.
Yeah, it looks a bit shiny. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us the meaning of this and what are you trying to tell us here? Are the world's coming apart?
Yeah, kind of a future outlook on our planet. So what we are doing to it now, like the melting icebergs and air pollution and plastic waste. Yeah, and in Europe we have this war going on in Ukraine here as well, so that found its place as well.
Is that affecting you?
It's affecting energy prices in the whole of Europe, because Russia stopped delivering gas and oil to Germany or to Europe in general. And as we are very dependent on gas in Russian gas, or were very dependent on Russian gas in Germany, the prices for heating, for example, for 1 year have doubled in Germany. So it affects us in this way. Also, we have about 1 million refugees from Ukraine living in Germany now. So that is another effect. And of course, it affects Ukrainian people a lot, as Russia is bombing their energy infrastructure and water infrastructure at the time. So, yeah.
Are you getting refugees in your part of Germany?
Yes, we do.
And
Yeah,
how is that being managed?
A lot of them live in or with families in private owned flats and rooms. My sister has people staying with her. So yeah, and there are flats rented by the government or by the local government for refugees as well. And also some less fortunate people end up in kind of containers where they live, not permanently, but at least at the beginning. So there are a bigger accommodation for refugees as well, not only from Ukraine, but also from other countries.
Any chance to using Ray Barracks in Friedberg for that kind of endeavor?
I haven't heard about that yet, so I don't know. I think they need to be renovated first, or so they are not using them at the moment. No, but that's an idea. Yeah.
So back to your sculpture, I didn't realize it was only it was blasted like that. I thought maybe it was a whole sphere.
Wow.
No, it wasn't when I got the piece of wood. I wanted to make a sphere as big as possible, but I'd have lost a lot of it, and it somehow fitted with the theme of the Earth being destroyed partly or more and more. So I did it this way, and yeah. So let's go on, and that's the other side then.
What,
So this-
what is that black thing? That's the bomb.
yeah, it is a burning one.
No.
So it shows the direction in which we are steering at the moment, or it's supposed to show.
It does.
Wow. Wow.
Boy, you're full of cheer and happiness this morning, aren't you? Kai?
Yeah, maybe it doesn't fit the sculpture, but I think maybe that's the one thing, to see what's going on, and the other thing is not to lose your happiness at the same time, but to do something against it, or to keep it in mind. And yeah.
I would say, rather than that being the absolute outcome, it's one outcome, and we still have an opportunity to work to change it.
Yeah, that's right, and that's what we need to do.
How long is the fuse on that bomb? That's what I want to know, because we're gonna have to work fast at the rate we're going.
That's right.
Yeah, I
And-
guess it's going to burn another 15 years, maybe 20 years, but then it will be too late.
Have you got another slide?
Yeah, maybe just that the globe, you can turn it around, so it's turnable, and I built a little brake mechanism here, so I can fix it in one position without it turning by itself. Let's see whether I've got another slide. Yeah, here you can see it again.
Wow.
And
So what are you going to do with this guy?
I just keep it in our living room at the moment.
Okay, I mean, are you going to exhibit it somewhere?
Maybe, if people want to see it, I'll have to find out.
It's a nice piece. Yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
yeah, a lot going on.
I would love to see it just slowly turning constantly. But
Mhm.
Yeah, you have to motorize it. You're exactly right.
That's a challenge, yes.
oh, but you're up to it, Kai.
I'm sure you can rise to that challenge, Kai. A guy like you, with your degree of ingenuity, you could figure that out.
I guess I need to make another one then that is turning where I can hide the motor so it isn't visible. Yeah.
You should make it like a pyramid with the bombs around it burning and making the paddle turn.
oh boy.
Yeah, that's a Christmas theme.
Yeah, Weihnachten Perimeter.
Yeah.
Now we've gotten into self-destruction. You don't call these funnels though, they just self-destruct, so.
Everybody's laughing about the destruction.
Well, that's what you have to do.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Okay, any more
Okay.
from you, Kai?
No, I stop this here.
Okay. Now it's up to you, Bowman.
All right.
This is a bit of an experimental morning. We're learning how to use, and we got a new guy running the mouse here, and we're learning how to do stuff. So
I hope you're seeing that. So.
yeah, we are. Well, tell us what it is, though.
Yeah, well, a couple weeks ago, I think I talked about my home built hollowing rig. I had a lot of trouble with using a GoPro in the front of it for a number of reasons. So I went the cheap route. I went on Amazon and bought a $25 security camera and attached it to the front. And I was off hollowing. And this piece here survived. And you can see right there, that's a 1/4 inch. I gave myself plenty of room. That's a 1/4 inch around my cutter. The continuing struggle for me is I need to pull it out every time after I do a pass because it vibrates enough that sometimes it gets a little off register. So I'm going to go out to the shop today and stump a whole bunch of CA glue all over to make sure it stays solid, and then I can adjust it. Now I want to show you what I turned though, because that's the fun part.
I'm just as interested in how the gizmo works, so that's
Oh.
okay. Hey, you made 3 of those.
Nope. You remember I take 3
Oh, yeah.
turns.
Right.
I keep fooling you. Yeah, no, I want to show it without having to show a movie of it turning slowly. But that was old cherry. I believe that cherry came down here in the greens back over 2 decades ago. I finally got into it, and I haven't cut dry wood for a long time. It was fun. And I managed to literally hollow in around that belly without going through. I was so delighted that night. Yeah, it was kind of pleasing. So this is the bottom of it. I've taken up to Doug's method of using archival ink to write my stuff on, but I discovered if I use feed and wax by Howard's, it dissolves that ink. So I've had to do this 2 or 3 times. What I've done is I sand with Mahoney's oil and a pad that I got from Infinity Tools that has 350 grid embedded on it, and another one that's embedded with 1500, and I wet sand it with the 350 and Mahoney's oil, and then I finish it up. Just recently I started using Howard's again. I used it years ago when I first started back at turning, and I used the 1500, so it gets really smooth. So you want to go back to the rig? What do you
No, keep showing us the work. Go on with the work, and then we'll
Well,
go
I
back.
think I showed you guys the next things here, so that's pretty much it for today. Did you want to
So-
look at?
Are you pretty consistently a 1/4 inch wall on that pot?
Yes, I'm very consistent down through.
And what's how are you getting the inside smooth?
I use flap sanding discs. You know what I mean?
Oh, what are they like?
They're like, I don't have one here. They're a circle, and they come in various diameters. A circle that have a whole bunch of flaps of sandpaper glued in, basically. And you put them on a drill and just go in and all around. It works really amazing. And I have a 3-inch, 2-inch, and I think I have some 1-inchers. And that really does the trick for me. I use carbide cup cutters for the interior. And I try to get it real smooth at that, and then I finish it off with the sanding. So yeah. That's it.
Okay, go back to the rig.
Yep.
Yeah.
Does that
So-
help you?
What is the camera's on that L-shaped arm, and that's mounted right on your boring bar, it looks like.
That's right. It's bullet. I'm using trans stabilizer.
Okay,
He attaches his laser thing right down here. Do you see my
yeah,
right down there? Well, I just bolted this purple piece out of my scrap barrel in the garage, and then took a expansion bar that electricians use to put boxes in. You thread out and you can put boxes in between joists and rafters and stuff. And I cut it down so I can adjust it in and out. I haven't had to do that because I got it pretty well placed. So you see, I have Cindy's light on the front of this mount so I can see what's going on in there. Not that I'm looking at it, but I wanted to show it to see what it's like. So, yeah.
and what's the cutter you're using on the end of that bar?
It's a 5/8 inch bar that I mounted a cup cutter from, who makes them? You guys all.
It's a cup cutter. It's one of those independent food guys. Hunter, I think.
Hunter, it's a Hunter cutter. Yeah, I had to learn. I bought the hook tool directly from Trent, and when it came, it had this really tiny, about quarter inch cup cutter on. I said, this thing won't cut anything. That's typical of me. It's got to hog it good. So I ground it down and put a thicker one on. Well, wow, that thing's aggressive. So I have to learn to be a little more gentle. So, and not so big.
So what happens if you get a catch in there, or have you had a catch inside there?
I haven't really. When it gets down, Trent even says this, once you get down, this is still about 5-6 inches tall. So I grab the bar in front and behind where the post is mounted. And as long as I'm only doing 6 inches, I can push it in. Once it gets in, I hold it down pretty tight against the stabilizing bar because it does start to chatter. I mean, maybe I'm doing something wrong, but I fight. And I just did a 9-inch one. Holy cow, that was a problem. And then I tried to smooth it out, and well, guess what? I went right through the wall, so I was getting too aggressive. So it's fun. This one was great. So, all right, guys. Yeah.
Questions for Jim?
Hey, Jim.
Yeah.
I found that when I switched to this teardrop cutter, and I don't know if you guys can see it on my camera here, but
Let me stop my share.
Okay. So I'll use this one just like you talked about the hunter cutter.
Yes.
And it does really well. But then I'll switch to this teardrop cutter, which is a scraper.
Yes.
And that will smooth out the ridges from the hunter carbide, and it gives you a really much smoother finish on the inside and a more even finish.
That's a teardrop shape. The only ones of them I've seen are round. Did you make it teardrop or did it come that way?
This one came from Carter this way, and I think AZ Carbide sells these.
Carter sells them because I was tempted to go that route. Because what happened to me is I broke that little one off, and all was left was the little stud, and it was pretty smooth. And I pulled it out. I said, "Where's my carbide?" It was still inside the vessel. So yeah. I've been wondering. So Rick, I may try that. I've been wondering about those teardrops because it seems there's got to be a better way.
Yeah, they don't use them at the start. Use them at the end because they take
at
forever.
the end.
Yeah.
Okay.
But once you've got your basic idea down, like you said, to a 1/4 inch, and then you do that teardrop, you can go to an 1/8 inch very easily. And it'll be very smooth.
And it's a lot less a risk of actually cutting through. When you have a little 1/4 inch cutter, you can slice a vessel in half real quick. But if you have that teardrop, it's going to have more surface touching.
And remember, it's a scraper, so this edge up here needs to have that ability to peel it off, right? So you're going to have to resharpen it reasonably often, especially on really hard dry woods.
Yeah,
that's partly why I stayed away from them. I don't like having the sharp stuff.
Is that high-speed steel or carbide though? The teardrop.
It's carbide.
Oh, it is carbide.
Yeah, AZ Carbide I think sells them too.
Well, then you can't raise the burr on carbide.
you can, yeah.
I did it on my Tormek and was able to.
Are you sure that, I'm sorry, I'm not questioning, but it doesn't look like carbide to me. So that's what I'm wondering about, Rich. So.
Well, I got it from Carter, so it may be, I could be wrong. I'm not going to disagree,
I think it's high-speed steel. Yeah.
It could be, but
I get a different question for you guys now. We think we've got 3 people spotlighted. Do you see 3 spotlighted, or do you guys just see Rich Colvin, who's in the speaker? What do you see?
We see 3.
You see 3.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's interesting because that shows
from there to there.
Yeah, the Zoom, the screen we have that's supposed to be showing the Zoom feed is showing the speaker, but the screen that usually shows our gallery view is showing the 3 of you, and that's not supposed to be the Zoom feed, but it looks like it is while we're doing this. So we've only been doing this for 2.5 years. We don't know enough yet.
Hey, well,
Harry's only seeing single in the room.
So
I'm not sure I like being compared to other guys on the same screen now. You're handsome.
It would be a toss-up right there between Rich and Ernie and you. Who's the least handsome?
We're trying to get the Ernie hairdo there.
I thought you guys were trying to turn balls or something like that, but then I realized it's just the shine.
Well, Ernie's got nice hair, so what can we
Ernie's got hair.
Ernie's got hair.
Yeah. He's not just style, he's hair too.
Okay, now let's see what do we have to do?
Well, the teardrop do intrigue me, but I think they're all HS steel, so I don't know. So
Jim, Robert saw me do a set tool of scrapers, and they're diamond, they're oval, and they're pear drop.
And
Who is it?
Robert Sorby.
Sorby. Oh, sure.
Dave,
He's from England, right? I mean, isn't that England?
They're an English company, yeah.
Yeah, we'll get back.
I'll sort them out and show you them next week.
And you use them?
Yes, that bowl I showed you earlier was made with those.
I think I'm gonna have to switch. I'm tired of cutting up my really nice vessels.
Quite a few companies offer both high-speed steel and carbides in the same shape.
Oh.
I prefer the high-speed steel personally because you can grind them to a burr. You can also go around and put a negative rake on them pretty quickly in a CBN grinder. And that way you can come right up the center line with the tool level and scrape perfectly.
Ernie, does that, this is a dumb question late in the game. Is a negative rake have a burr on it?
They all have a burr.
Decidedly, what you're doing with that negative rake is creating a downward slope to the tool that would be the same as if you tilted it or leaned it downhill.
But it doesn't have a burr per se that you have ground over with a curled edge.
It will if it's it's a tempered piece, either carbon steel tempered or high-speed steel.
Yeah, I always put a burr on a negative rake tool.
Okay.
Even a little wee fine one.
I get to grind the underside last.
Yeah, grind the underside last, and you can burnish it with a burnish.
Okay, thank you, Barry. I was gonna ask that question. Which one do you grind last? I'm gonna convert one of my side grinders into a negative, a side scraper into a negative. So I use negative, but they're always carbide. So
let me pull the room here. How many people here, by waving a hand, have one of these hollowing rigs or want one? Have one or want one? Okay, let's take the want ones away and let's see how many have one. And it's more than a few. Okay, so there's a lot of people out here using these rigs. I didn't realize that. I thought they were a very specialized thing, and nobody, very few people actually had the rig with the camera and all that stuff and the stabilizing bar. I guess you call that a gate that keeps the bar stable.
hey,
I
John,
don't have the camera with my rig. I've just got the hollowing rig without the camera. But Jim, if I could just make a comment. You're talking about it being aggressive. Well, that's one of the things about those hollowing rigs is that you don't handle them the same. When you're hollowing, you don't handle them the same way as you do on a normal tool. You have to, I always almost just use my fingertips in doing the cutting because it's so stable and everything like that. You got to just be careful coming in. And the other part is also working from down, working as a draw cut as opposed to a push cut. When you're making that, the draw cut coming up the side, I realize you're supposed to get thin at the top, but the draw cut is a lot easier to control when you're trying to do the final inside edge.
So you're going to do that from the bottom up, in other words.
Yes.
well, that's the way I do it because otherwise you go straight through the wall. I mean, at least I do. So
Yeah.
Doug's right. I go across the bottom from the middle and then come up the side as I build it or want to knock it down.
Hey, guys, I think that's really you're setting yourself up for a bad failure on a really deep vessel by doing that, because you got to have that mass holding the walls up. So you do have to do a pull cut, like he said, but I only go a couple of inches down and pull that, get that finished, then go another couple of inches and then another couple of inches. If I were to start at the bottom, you'd end up with a thin wall at the bottom and a thick wall at the top, and then as you came up, it would just explode.
Rich, I probably didn't describe it right. I do exactly I normally bore as much I can bore with a Forstner, so I'm not taking a lot away with the hollowing rig. And then I start working my way up. You're right. I mean, you needed that mass at the bottom. The other problem, Doug, I have is obviously as you get to the top more, it becomes less stable, shall I say. I find I have more movement at the top, which drives me crazy. And
well, that's why
I have it locked tight in the check. I always check that. So,
but that's why. Well, that's to Rich's point, and that you do the final, and then when I'm talking about any final stroke, is that it's only, again, you have to be very light on it, but it's all a matter of balance and getting the right thickness.
Well, Doug, maybe I'm making a mistake by boring out as much as I can with my Forstner. I never thought about that. Just use small enough to get your chisel in and start working up. Maybe I'll retry my method of working.
I think that's probably better in what you're trying to do. I think Rich is right. You want to do the top 2 inches and then do the next inch and then the next inch. And you want that
Yeah.
match. If you get it hollow all the way down, it's gonna, you're really gonna be risking it coming apart on you.
I've been fortunate enough to try almost all the systems. And a couple of things to remember is one, you're basically cutting radiuses inside as you cut, and you always want to keep the cutter much smaller than the radius, because the more and more of that cutter you get engaged, the more force you're putting on the bar and the piece. Also, I've found that the smaller the cutter, almost the better a beginner does with it.
Ernie, you're absolutely right. And again, Hog Bowman is learning his lesson the hard way. I'm gonna go back and find that little 1/4 inch one and put it on, because I think, by the way, I'd like to extend John's line of questioning. John, can we ask who has what rigs? I'd like to
Sure.
know if somebody else has used.
Let's do that. If you guys look at gallery view, you'll be able to see all the faces. There are 37, 36 on screen. Who has one of the rigs? Anyway, Lyle Jameson rig. Who's got one of those? I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those. Trent Bosch rig. Who's got one of those? Same guys. You got also. You mean you guys have more than one, don't you? I see 3 of those, 4 of those. What other rigs are out there?
I
Yeah,
use
Carter.
Vic Mark. I use Vic Mark.
Vic Mark.
Yeah.
How many Vic Marks we got?
Just one.
You're the only one.
There's a Sorby Steady Pro also.
I have the
I have
the Sorby Steady Pro. I have the One Way, which is massive, and I have the Carter, and they're all good.
I have the Carter XL.
John.
The Carter is the best selling in the industry. I can't tell you where I got those figures, but it is the best selling.
Well, it doesn't work as well as the other rigs. I mean, some of you guys have got more than one rig. Does anyone work better than another?
Well, John, I that's a difficult question to answer in some regards, because like the Carter XL and a couple of the others use a D capture, and they have like rolling bars to keep it from rolling. And some of the others, like the other Carter one, and I think the Trent Bosch one, actually, they're located on pivot points that move around, so they're locked in place on the backside, and they don't have as much hit. So they're very different in the approach, where the D model is used for really deep hollowing. I mean, like the bar on my Carter XL, it's 1.5 inch solid steel.
Jeez, God.
And it's heavy. But that's why it allows me to bore down 30, 40 inches into something if I wanted to. But it's heavy.
The One Way is truly massive and is great for really big, deep following. But it is a lot of work to set up. I can turn my computer and you can probably see the rear gate to it up on that shelf.
That's a big piece of metal there.
It's big.
Does anybody use the elbow? I think Tim Yoder makes something called the elbow, or something like that, which I thought was pretty cool. I didn't meet it till after I invested in Stabilizer by Trent Bosch. And then Doug was fortunate enough to loan me the Lyle Jameson rig he had, and boy, I hated that bugger. I did not like that bugger at all.
Well, I remember visiting Ed Moulthrop years and years ago in his studio in Atlanta. Ed makes these huge spheres that are hollow. He didn't have a hollowing rig though. He had harpoon-like tools. Some of the tool hook, he was using hook tools that were easily 8 feet long.
They were truly massive. They were like harpoons.
They were harpoons, yeah.
And he made them by taking scrap metalworking taps that he would buy by the pound, and he'd hand forge them himself into traditional hook tools. Rudy Selnick and I visited him, I don't know, probably in the 1980s. And he was very gracious, and he gave us the harpoons. We tried them, and I promptly broke the end off of one of his hand-forged taps.
Well, you see, I didn't try one. I knew that was going to happen. So
I used to
he was a gracious person.
I used to travel a lot internationally, and I was in Africa once, and I forget which country it was. They had a whole row of boys, I'm going to call them boys, with what I swear was like digging irons that we would have here that had the end sharpened. And they were going in on these things, making these vessels. I brought one back and it promptly cracked open. It was still pretty wet, but they were going at it with these things. And I thought, holy cow, but they were strong, you know, so.
I think back on the things of the hollowing, if you're not, my biggest problem with a 40 or 50 inch deep hollowing form is I don't have a lathe that big. So for me, the reason, and Jim referred to the fact that I have a Lyle Jameson rig and a Trent Bosch. I just found the Trent Bosch rig so much more flexible for small hollows. You know, and by small, I mean 20-inch diameter, maybe 10 or 15 inches deep. I can still use it. But I just found it a whole lot more flexible and easier to use because around the angles you can get into it. So it's very smooth. You know, I really like that. I recommend it to anybody if you're thinking something for small sizes or smaller sizes.
You know, Doug, I think you're right, because the bigger one is nice, but you can't do a very curved surface or a small opening either. That's the other thing. It's got to have a fairly large opening to get the cutter inside of it. And in this cutter that I've got, it's 3/4 inches around here on the bottom. So you can see it's got to have a fairly large opening just to get it inside there to get started.
yeah, that's for big work, little work.
Hey, Rich, how big is that oval one that you held up? I'm starting to see an issue here with the size that you need to have to get in.
They have different sizes, so you know you can look at that.
Okay.
Well, you know, the other thing that I would say as well is that, you know, there's and I'm trying to find the name for it, but it's the wheels that hold things in place, the balance. That's really useful for hollowing too. And I would say, Jim, if you had one of those, it would help make your job a lot easier.
I do have one, but it's the question of, do I want to take the time to set it up, or do I want to risk trying to hollow without it? But I do have one of those, what do you call them? Stabilizing rigs, or what, 3 wheels that, yeah.
Arrest.
Let's go back to the question of hollowing without the rig. How deep? I mean, I can hollow about 6 inches, maybe even 8, without a rig, because I don't have a rig. I'm using my longest and strongest and most careful tools, and it's very difficult. But I can get about 8 inches in. How about you guys? Does anybody have any more experience than that, or more something else to say?
I have a comment that may or not upsets people, but I tend to cheat a little bit, get it as thin as I can, and I used a copy that I made of the Lyle Jameson rig, because I think it was somebody, it might have been Ernie or Doug, but one of me mentioned that it's captured completely as far as torque and its weight. So you sit there in a chair and you can literally it's almost a very, very light touch. You have to be patient, but that to me works quite well. I get it as thin as I can, and then I sand it the rest of the way. And I do a lot of piercing, which is something you guys may or may not be interested in. But in order to pierce it, you have to have about 1/8 of an inch to 16. So 3/32 is my ideal size. And by that time, it's so weak, you have to support it with things. I've tried different things. If I'm sanding on the outside, sometimes I'll wrap it with tape, the shrink wrap. And sometimes on the inside, I'll put a balloon or something and try and support it. Because once this piece, regardless of the shape, once you get that thin. And if it's that, I don't know, this is maybe 7 or 8 inches. But once you get it that thin, you have to support it. And in this case, the top and the bottom are grooved such that they capture the diameter. And then the little legs on the side are for supporting the middle. So it's a lot like bridge construction. You find the weakest point and support it, the next weakest point and support it, and work your way down. And by now it's quite sturdy. I pass it around at most of the club meetings, and I've done one that's actually about 17 or 18 inches tall. But sanding is my go-to finish to get it that thin, and you just have to be patient. That's all there is to it.
What are you sanding with, Carl?
I use whatever I can get. Usually I have 3 rolls of, I think it's 320. So I go all the way up to 60 grit, but then eventually I'll get down, of course, to 320 and 600.
But I mean, you're using one of those flap wheels like Jim was talking about?
No, never. No, mine is all hand sanded on the inside and outside once you get that thin, because it's so fragile. But thanks, guys. Go ahead, John. You were going to say.
I was going to say, you got your hand up. What else you want to tell us today?
That's all. I was just patiently waiting. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else on this topic before we go on? Ray, yeah, what do you got, Ray?
For Jim, Jim, if you changed over to one of those cup cutters, one thing about the cup cutter, you have to cut it the other direction. So if you're cutting the same as you were with a scraping cut from the outside in, and then you change to a cup cutter and do that, it self-feeds when you look at the angle of the way the cup cutter's set up in a hunter tool. So you can cut it the same process that you use, but you have to cut from inside out. And that angle now is a draw cut. But if you go the other way and that starts to self-feed, it just cuts right through the side.
I learned that the hard way. I know now to do from the inside out, but I'm learning that I should have not bored out my vessel all the way in. I'm going to try the next one where I just work
the boring isn't, I don't think the boring is an issue. The reason if you do that, what it's going to do for you is take out that centerpiece that's hard to take out. But if you bore that, and then you say you're using a cup cutter, you bore that cut from the inside out, you're just going to go from the center out, but don't go all the way to the bottom. Just do it. And like Rich said, you do that down about an inch, clean it up, you're ready to go, you go down another inch. Boring it out takes that hard part to get out of there, because that's hard to cut out. The only thing about boring it is when you bore it, if you're going to a real small hollowing hole, it's different. If you're going big, then typically I like a small hole. Some guys like you made like a cup of real big size. It doesn't make any difference, because you're going to take the weight off as you go down, but don't do the hole use the hole as your starting point, like go all the way to the bottom, start cutting there, and it'll be fine.
Thank you, Ray. Hey, the other question I have is, if I get down against the bottom, boy, does it grab the chisel and throw it around. So I've tried all kinds of things. I finally ended up just sticking number 60 on a sander and grinding the bottom smooth. So,
well, a catch on the bottom is a nice way to make a small hole into a big hole.
Well, okay, now we've got on another topic altogether, just for a moment, the dust machinery that we're sitting on top of has started up, and we have Zoom set to automatically suppress background noise. But we've also noticed that the higher that setting is, the more muffled the voices are. So can you hear me now?
You're very clear.
Okay, so that's interesting. Do you hear the sound of the dust machine?
Not at all.
You don't hear the hum, but you do hear me.
Yep.
How about that, eh?
That's good.
Very cool.
Hey,
Yeah.
you got make a comment about that. That setting, if you do videos and you want people to hear your lathe, you got to turn that setting way off.
Well, we know that.
It suppresses the lathe sound, and all you get is your voice.
Well, what you do there is you switch to original sound in Zoom. but that will bring all of the noise of the dust machine in and there. And see, ordinarily we don't hear that when we have a club meeting because these guys are all gone home. But right now it's a working day in the cabinet shop underneath us. So
Well, John, I think because you don't want to, you go into, there's varying degrees of that setting, right?
yeah, we have it on auto right now.
Yeah, take it off and put it on low or medium, and then you can hear the lathe while you're videotaping. So
Yeah, yeah. Okay, enough of hollowing then. Let's go to John Chalikian. What are you going to show us today, John?
Okay, just one simple thing. At the Lancaster Symposium, I bought the book Tips and Tricks from the AAW, and it makes real good bathroom reading. And one of the things that I picked out there was I made a handle that is using a pipe fitting, and you tighten that down by hand. I just finished this up the other day. A little twist with a pair of pliers and tighten that, makes it tight enough that it doesn't move. This is, moving around right now. And I don't use carbide tools too often, but so this is that. And I made a test piece using this. It's a candle tea light, and I cut the grooves with this tool, and it worked. It's a 1/2-inch flare fitting piece. I couldn't find it at a
hold it up a little higher so we can see.
Oh,
Yeah.
there you go.
Okay.
I couldn't find this part at a home center. I wound up at a plumbing supply store.
So what you're showing us is that's like a demountable tool handle, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
it was one of the tips in the tips and tricks. So with this, and maybe one day I'll buy a Carter tool or something like that.
Is that stable when you tighten it down?
Yes. It's
It
not.
doesn't wave around.
Well, doing it by hand, no, it's snug. So I took a pair of pliers and gave it just a small little extra twist, maybe 1/8 of an inch or 1/8 of a turn, and it was plenty tight and it did not move. This is the only tool that I've tried it in. I'm going to try it with a square cutter, but I think it works pretty good. One of the things that you do that's in the description to make it work, let's see if I can focus. I made slots so that as you turn the flare fitting, the nut, it tightens down on this. And like I said, with the pliers with a little twist, it's tight, it's stable.
John, what did those fittings cost you at the plumbing thing? The reason I'm asking is Todd Raines has a really nice detachable, just you make the handle and thread that in, and it's like $20, give or take. And I don't know, sometimes those fittings from plumbing place get expensive.
No, it was, I don't remember exactly, $5 to $7.
Oh, okay.
Hey, John?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is the contact with the shaft of the tool only on the brass, or is there a bore inside that exactly matches the shaft diameter?
Yes, I had to drill the brass piece to 1/2 inch.
Okay, it wasn't before.
Yeah, and I think this is slightly less than 1/2 inch. It's probably metric, just under that.
Okay. Any questions or comments for John? Okay, thank you, John. Doug, what do you have? What do you got? You're muted, Doug.
Am I still muted there?
No, you're good now.
I haven't been doing very much wood turning because I've been doing a lot of work on business trips. But the other day I went into my shop. I've been working on making a what I'm trying to do is make a Morrison's Morrison pillbox. So I started off with a 2-inch diameter ball and made myself my first attempt at making a cup that comes apart with the ball completely, and it's tight enough that it comes off. One of the things I did, which I was sort of half surprised at, I made this, I hollowed it out the center first and made it so the ball was this bigger ball, or the inside ball was quite a snug fit, so that when I had finished it, I then used this sort of shape and turned it between centers to get it round as I could. And because of this lip on the inside here, because of this groove, even though the center was off, like I could put it in my lathe, if you imagine me holding it like that in the lathe and it's spinning, it still didn't shift at all. And the inside ball then supported the hollow as I was making it. So I was able to get it fairly round. I just thought it was rather cool. Now I just have to figure out how to make it so that this line across here is a lot less. That's just a matter of doing that at the beginning. That's one of those ones you have to start off with as opposed to finish off with, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Just get with it right. Yeah. And this is, you're trying to make a magic illusions like Angelo makes.
Yeah. This is one so that what happens is that this hides up inside, and then you press the bottom and the ball. So when you first open the illusion, there's nothing in, or there's a ball in it, you take it out, and then the second time you squeeze these two parts together and a second ball comes out of it.
Yeah.
So,
Angelo makes a lot of those, and I have some good slides and a video of Angelo's processes. So I'll probably put that in the chat, because I think it's really great stuff, and we haven't seen it enough.
Well, and making this split ball is I know you've done a bunch of these too, John. It's a real challenge.
It's fun. It's a really good challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I next time through, I'm going to try and make it a little bit thinner, but I think it's, you want to make it robust enough that you can handle it if you're going to do it for a magic trick or something like that. But anyway, so that's
you can get them down to about a 1/16 thick, and it'll be quite solid because of the geometry of it.
Did you do it in a jam chuck?
No, I did it in a cone chuck. Cone.
What do you
mean?
Rubber checky?
Pardon?
Rubber checky?
No, what I did is I turned one side, turned this side, turned the inside out, turned the other side and inside. Then when these two was still square, I put it between centers like this, put down the side, and then rotated it and made it round again, rotated it between two cones instead of a jam chuck.
Oh yeah, but you're not using the octagon method that Angelo teaches.
Well, sort of, but not quite.
But not quite, right.
Well, that's what I was doing on this, but the problem is the octagon method that Angelo teaches, and this is what made me nervous. I've used the octagon method on a ball like this with no problem, because you can turn it around between cones. But for me, having something hollow between cones was, can you do it? And it's like, well, as a matter of fact, you can if you want to, because this does not, as long as you've got the points on there, there's nothing, the lip is holding it together, so it'll actually spin quite nicely. So the only other part then is putting a ball inside, then keeps the form from flexing while you're making it. So it actually supporting the inside.
That's a pretty good trick. I've only ever seen it done without doing that. It's actually not that hard, but it takes really careful work, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, and it made a huge difference holding that form. So anyway.
Hey, John. Go ahead.
Your cone.
Sorry?
Is the inside conical surfaces on your cone, are they wood, or you put rubber in there, or?
No, I just use wood on the cones. And I haven't, as
You
long,
know,
yeah,
we should demo all that again. We did that a couple of years ago. It's been quite a while. We should bring it all out and demo it all again. Ways of making spheres, hollow and solid. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Hey, John,
We're on
I
the-
have a suggestion for our next topic too. I'm about to pull the trigger on a coring device, and I've been doing deep research, and now I'm really frustrated knowing which one to do. And I'd love to talk with the guys who use the various ones and find out the pluses and minuses. The newest one looks real appealing.
Bring it on for next week. We're back next week with another copy hour. Also, I need to announce that Saturday, the 10th, I believe it is. Yeah. Saturday, the 10th is open shop here from 9 to noon. Along with open shop, we are going to start doing inventory of our gear, so we know what we got, so we can decide what to buy next. And I don't know who else, has anybody got, Sarah, are you going to bring your big bowl here, or has that not happened yet?
Yes, I will bring that.
Okay, so Sarah's looking for somebody to mentor her on turning a rather large burl. I'm hoping Doug or somebody like that who does a lot of this will also come here on that Saturday to pitch in on that project and help us figure it out.
on the 10th, you said?
The 10th, yep.
I'll put it in my diary.
Hey,
Okay.
John, I want to see what Rich has shown before we leave. Can we do
Okay.
that? I'm
Sure,
gonna
Rich.
spotlight him.
Okay, what do you
Yeah,
got?
so
there?
these are from Carter Products, and they're used for doing exactly what Doug was talking
Yeah,
about.
those are cones, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the cones. And so
We
one of
make 'em.
these is is a revolving center, and the other is a fix, so that you can put this in the headstock and this in the tailstock. But these are, and this is just from Carter. I think other people make them fine, but these are really good. And because these are a plastic rubberized kind of surface, it grips the wood well, but it doesn't mark it at all.
Yeah,
What's the company?
it's Carter.
This is
We
from
make
Carter.
those, Doug and I have been making those just out of wood, but that's nice. Those are nice. I didn't know those existed.
They're not that expensive from what I remember, but every time I make a ball or a sphere of any kind, these really come in handy.
They would, yeah. Well, kids, it's another hour you've whiled away with wood turning chat, Lancaster Woodturners Coffee Hour. I've enjoyed it a lot as usual. And we, along with this, we got our shop space here better set up than we had it before. You can walk around without tripping on cords now. And with all that, we'll see you all at, I guess we'll see you all next Tuesday is the next chance we see you all.
Hey,
Thank you
John,
all
can
very
you hang on a second? I got a question,
Sure.
if you don't mind. I dialed in late, so I didn't hear the information about how to become a member of the Pennsylvania Club, since I'm enjoying what you're doing so much. How do I do
Okay.
that?
You can pay, the simplest way is PayPal $30 to me. On my email address, which is johnkelse@gmail.com. Normally my name has a Y on it, but Gmail doesn't have that. So if you PayPal that to me, that's the quickest and simplest way to pay your dues.
JOHNKELSE@gmail.com.
You got it.
All right, I'm
Very
going to get that out to you. It may not be today, but I'm going to get that out to you because I feel like I'm benefiting enough that it's worth it.
Okay, well, I think let's hear it for that. $30 is the annual dues for one hell of a lot of wood turning programming in this club. Okay, guys,
Yeah.
we're going to end meeting for all.
Whoa.